The 2024 election felt like a movie. One man, two separate opponents, and the entire establishment trying to kick down his door. This is how Trump pulled off the greatest comeback in American history. Our story starts in the winter of 2024. Donald Trump had already announced his run, but both his former allies and old enemies lined up to block him, right in the middle of his legal battles. You had Ron DeSantis, the guy who ran this ad.
Everyone knows my husband Ron DeSantis is endorsed by President Trump, but he's also an amazing dad. Ron loves playing with the kids.
Build the wall.
He's teaching Madison to talk.
Make America great again.
You also had Mike Pence, Trump's former VP and known turncloak. Nikki Haley, his former UN ambassador who once praised him to the heavens.
Donald Trump has always put America first. This president has a record of strength and success. He's tough on China, and he took on ISIS and won.
Vivek Ramaswamy, a fresh new voice who would later become a Trump ally. Also
Sloppy Chris Christie.
And more, all positioned against Trump, betting on the courts to put him in jail. When the Republican debates rolled around, Trump made a move that stunned the pundits. He skipped the debates, every single one. While his rivals clawed at each other on stage, Trump was busy filling up stadiums. On that Iowa debate stage, Nikki Haley looked straight into the camera and said,
I wish Donald Trump was up here on this stage. He's the one that I'm running against. He's the one that I wish would be here. He needs to be defending his record.
Even Ron DeSantis jumped in.
I do agree with her on this. Donald Trump should be on this stage. He owes it to you here in Iowa to explain this change he's had in his positioning, to explain why he has a tough time saying whether a man can become a woman or not. He needs to explain why he didn't build the wall and why he added $7.8 trillion to the debt.
But the truth is, Trump didn't need to be on that stage. At this point, he was a seasoned politician, and voters already knew where he stood on the issues. Then came caucus night. The message from Iowa couldn't have been clearer. Donald Trump stormed to victory with 51% of the vote. Ron DeSantis trailed far behind at 21. Nikki Haley came in at 19, and Vivek Ramaswamy finished with just 8. A 30-point landslide, the largest margin ever in a competitive Iowa Republican caucus. That same night, Vivek dropped out and pledged his support to Trump.
There is no path for me to be the next president absent things that we don't want to see happen in this country. And now going forward, he will have my full endorsement for the presidency, and I think we're going to do the right thing for this country.
And from there, one by one, the rest began to fall in line. Super Tuesday was a blowout. 15 states voted and Trump won 14 of them. Nikki Haley managed to squeak out a single win in Vermont, which had only 17 delegates. The delegate math was devastating. 865 delegates were at stake that night, and Trump won roughly 770 to 780 of them. From there, the nomination was effectively over. On March 12th, 2024, the Associated Press made it official. 4 indictments, 91 charges, none of it mattered. On paper, the Republican Party was his once again, but the truth is he always had it even after 2020. The moment that defined the campaign came on a summer evening in Pennsylvania, July 13th, 2024. Trump was giving a speech, and then shots cracked through the air, 8 rounds from an AR-15. Secret Service agents screamed, "Get down," and Trump went down. Then he stood, blood running down his face, fist raised high, 3 words that became legend.
Wait.
A simple chart on immigration may have blocked that fatal shot, but Trump's response turned survival into strength. Unfortunately, the gunman's bullet struck beyond Trump. Ori Compatore, a firefighter, was killed while protecting his family. May he rest in peace. 2 others were left critically wounded. 2 days later, Trump paid tribute at the Republican National Convention. On stage stood Corey's firefighter uniform. Trump walked over, put his hands on the shoulders of the jacket, and kissed Corey's hard hat. It was a moment of grief, but it was also a moment of resolve. From that night on, Trump's campaign carried the weight of Corey's sacrifice and the spirit of a movement that refused to be broken. From that RNC stage, Trump told the nation what he saw, felt, and thought in the instant he was shot.
It was a warm, beautiful day in the early evening in Butler Township in the great Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. Music was loudly playing, and the campaign was doing really well. Behind me and to the right was a large screen that was displaying a chart of border crossings under my leadership. In order to see the chart, I started to, like this, turn to my right and was ready to begin a little bit further when I heard a loud whizzing sound and felt something hit me really, really hard. I immediately knew it was very serious, that we were under attack, and in one movement proceeded to drop to the ground. Bullets were continuing to fly as very brave Secret Service agents rushed to the stage. In a certain way, I felt very safe because I had God on my side. I felt that.
There was even a really beautiful moment when Trump said,
Not supposed to be here. No?
the RNC made one thing clear: the GOP wasn't divided, it was united, and Trump was untouchable. Now let's look at the coalition that powered Trump's dominance, one that grew month by month, starting with the stunning crossover in late August.
It's with a sense of victory and not defeat that I'm suspending my campaign activity. And now to throw my support at President Trump.
And 2 days later, at the National Guard Association conference in Detroit, Tulsi Gabbard did the same.
I am proud to stand here before you today, whether you're a Democrat, a Republican, or an independent. If you love our country, as I do, if you cherish peace and freedom as we do, I invite you to join me in doing all that we can to save our country and elect President Donald J. Trump and send him back to the White House to do the tough work of saving our country and serving the people.
For Democrats, the optics of this was devastating. Two big names had crossed the line, and one of them carried the Kennedy name. The whole Kennedy family would eventually speak out against RFK, but none of that made a difference in the end. The coalition kept expanding in ways no one predicted. Hispanic voters were drifting away from the Democrats. Black men were warming to Trump in bigger numbers, and the Democrats weren't doing themselves any favors either. Like when Obama scolded black men for not wanting to vote for Kamala.
You're thinking about sitting out or even supporting somebody who has a history of denigrating you because you think that's a sign of strength, because that's what being a man is, putting women down? That's not acceptable.
And to make matters worse for the Democrats, the co-founder of Black Lives Matter, Rhode Island, pledged his support to Donald Trump.
We've been used and abused for so long. That party, they don't value our vote. Their policies are basically racist policies. I believe it's a racist party. Donald Trump, he's the opposite. He's going to tell you how it is. He's going to give it to you straight. Trump has done more for the black community than any president I can think of in my lifetime.
At the same time, Trump's reach was spreading across faith communities. Evangelical supporters stayed rock solid, but growth was coming in from Catholics, Orthodox Christians, and even Jewish voters who were breaking with tradition. The realignment was on full display. Young voters were shifting too, thanks in large part to Charlie Kirk. May he rest in peace. Through Turning Point USA, Charlie built the largest youth movement in conservative politics. He gave young Americans a platform, a community, and the confidence to stand up to the left. His campus events drew thousands, his rallies felt like concerts, and his clips went viral on TikTok, pulling in kids who had never cared about politics before. By 2024, Charlie's impact was obvious. Many were also discovering their faith. That mix of conviction and common sense became one of the biggest turning points of the election. Trump also listened to his youngest son, Barron, who urged him to hit the podcast circuit.
Mr. President, I know that you've been doing a lot of Gen Z, and you're doing more Gen Z podcasts. Is the influence coming from Barron?
A little bit. I mean, he tells me about all the hot guys, people I never heard about. Dad, that guy is hot.
You know, he was very cute, actually.
And the most notable came on October 25th in Austin, Texas, on the Joe Rogan Experience. They spoke for almost 3 hours, man to man. It drew 26 million views in a single day, the biggest political podcast ever. At the time of writing this, the YouTube video has 60 million views. And honestly, that appearance didn't just draw eyeballs, it kinda made supporting Trump cool. And then you had Elon Musk. Behind the scenes, he was rewriting the rules of social media. X became the free speech platform, a place for open debate instead of government censorship. But when Trump was finally unbanned, he didn't flood the site like he did in 2016. By then, he had his own app, Truth Social, and in classic Trump fashion, he would post on Truth first and then sometimes bring it over to X for millions more to see. Elon didn't just change the platform, he also became a major backer of Trump.
As you can see, I'm not just MAGA, I'm dark MAGA.
Even handing out $1 million checks in Pennsylvania as part of his campaign push. And after X, the rest of social media had to follow. That shift mattered. Trump may not have needed Musk personally to win, but he needed the momentum that came with free speech being unleashed again. The final and most important piece of the coalition was J.D. Vance. Once a never-Trumper, he eventually went MAGA, just like millions of others. Vance mattered because he bridged the gap. He was acceptable to the old establishment, but fully embraced by the MAGA base. Once he joined the ticket, he showed exactly why he belonged there. And on the debate stage against Tim Walz, Vance didn't try to bury his past.
Sometimes, of course, I've disagreed with the president, but I've also been extremely open about the fact that I was wrong about Donald Trump. I was wrong, first of all, because I believed some of the media stories that turned out to be dishonest fabrications of his record. When you screw up, when you misspeak, when you get something wrong and you change your mind, you ought to be honest with the American people about it. It's one of the reasons, Margaret, why I've done so many interviews is because I think it's important to actually explain to the American people where I come down on the issues and what changed.
Now that the coalition was built, it was time to ride the momentum. As the election was raging on, Trump took every attack thrown at him and used it to his advantage. Like the
91 fake and phony charges.
No candidate in American history faced what Trump did. 4 indictments, 91 charges. The media swore it was the end of Trump. His rivals counted on the courts to take him out. But every time they dragged him into court, it backfired. After each appearance, Trump would talk to the press until a judge finally slapped him with a gag order.
This was a political witch hunt for election interference, but also for getting somebody elected because she wanted to get the publicity. It's a disgrace, and they should pay me damages.
That only fired people up more. Now, the system wasn't just prosecuting him, they were trying to silence a presidential candidate. The lawfare only made him stronger. His fundraising shattered records. His poll numbers surged. And that mugshot, meant to shame him, became the most iconic image of the campaign. It showed up on t-shirts, flags, and banners at rallies. Trump himself even displayed it outside the Oval Office after he won, a reminder of everything he had overcome, or a warning to his enemies. The system truly tried to bury him. Instead, it bankrolled him. The indictments weren't his weakness, they were his fuel. And then there were political attacks, like when Joe Biden called Trump supporters garbage on a Zoom call with Latino voters.
The speaker at his rally called Puerto Rico a floating island of garbage. Well, let me tell you something. I don't know the Puerto Rican that I know, or Puerto Rico where I'm in my home state of Delaware. They're good, decent, honorable people. The only garbage I see floating out there is his supporters.
Within a day, Trump flipped this crude generalization into a win. At a rally in Green Bay, Wisconsin, a garbage truck rolled onto the scene with Trump's name on it. Trump climbed inside and turned Biden's insult into a viral moment.
How do you like my garbage truck? This truck is in honor of Kamala and Joe Biden. Joe Biden should be ashamed of himself if he knows what he's even doing. And she should be ashamed because she shouldn't let him do it. She's the vice president, but I assume she's acting as the president. She should never have let that happen. I hope you enjoyed this garbage truck.
From that moment, Trump was truly on his Forrest Gump arc.
Have a nice day.
Now, let's talk about the debate that changed everything. It was June 27th, 2024, the CNN debate between Joe Biden and Donald Trump. Joe Biden shuffled onto the stage and America watched in horror. He was confused, rambling, lost. At times, even Trump's face looked like he felt sorry for him. But then came the knockout clip, the moment that sealed Biden's fate and ended his run as the nominee.
Elder care, making sure that we continue to strengthen our healthcare system, making sure that we're able to make every single solitary person eligible for what I've been able to do with the with the COVID. With dealing with everything we have to do with. Look, if we finally beat Medicare.
Thank you, President Biden. President Trump?
Well, he's right. He did beat Medicare. He beat it to death.
After this, Democratic panic set in immediately. CNN called it a disaster, and even George Clooney, a failed actor and donor to the Democrat Party, penned an op-ed urging Biden to drop out of the race. On July 21st, the pressure campaign finally worked. Biden dropped out. Within hours, Kamala Harris became the nominee. No primary, no votes, just coronation. The Democratic Party had chosen their next candidate, and Trump was ready for whatever came next. 9 days after Kamala became the nominee, Trump went into hostile territory. This is probably one of my favorite Trump moments of 2024. July 31st, Chicago, the National Association of Black Journalists Convention. You already know what's coming.
Mr. President, we so appreciate you giving us an hour of your time. I want to start by addressing the elephant in the room, sir. A lot of people did not think it was appropriate for you to be here today. You have pushed false claims about some of your rivals, from Nikki Haley to former President Barack Obama, saying that they were not born in the United States, which is not true. You have told 4 congresswomen of color who were American citizens to go back to where they came from.
One eternity later.
So my question, sir, now that you are asking black supporters to vote for you, why should black voters trust you after you have used language like that?
Well, first of all, I don't think I've ever been asked a question in such a horrible manner. First question. You don't even say, hello, how are you? Are you with ABC? Because I think they're a fake news network, a terrible network. And I think it's disgraceful that I came here in good spirit. I love the black population of this country. I've done so much for the black population of this country, including employment, including opportunity zones with Senator Tim Scott of South Carolina, which is one of the greatest programs ever for black workers and black entrepreneurs. I've done so much, and and I say this, historically black colleges and universities were out of money, they were stone cold broke, and I saved them, and I gave them long-term financing, and nobody else was doing it. I think it's a very rude introduction. I don't know exactly why you would do something like that. And let me go a step further. I was invited here, and I was told my opponent, whether it was Biden or Kamala, I was told my opponent was going to be here. It turned out my opponent isn't here. You invited me under false pretense. And then you said, you can't do it with Zoom. Well, where's Zoom? She's going to do it with Zoom, and she's not coming. And then you were half an hour late. Just so we understand, I have too much respect for you to be late. They couldn't get their equipment working or something was wrong.
Mr. President, I would love if you can answer the question on your rhetoric and why you believe that black voters should trust you with another 4 years.
I have been the best president for the black population since Abraham Lincoln. That's my answer.
Better than President Johnson, who signed the Voting Rights Act?
And for you to start off a question and answer period, especially when you're 35 minutes late because you couldn't get your equipment to work, in such a hostile manner, I think it's a disgrace.
And when they attacked him on Kamala's race, Trump doubled down.
Let me just ask a follow-up, sir, and then we'll move on to other questions here. Some of your own supporters, including Republicans on Capitol Hill, have labeled Vice President Kamala Harris, who is the first black and Asian American woman to serve as vice president and be on a major party ticket, as a DEI hire. Is that acceptable language to you? And will you tell those Republicans and those supporters to stop it?
How do you define DEI? Go ahead. How do you define
diversity, equity, inclusion?
Okay, yeah, go ahead. Is that what your definition?
That is
give me a
literally
definition
the words
then. Would you give me a definition
DEI.
of that? Give me a definition.
Sir, I'm asking you a question, a very direct question.
Define it for me, if you would.
I just defined it, sir. Do you believe that Vice President Kamala Harris is only on the ticket because she is a black woman?
Well, I can say no. I think it's maybe a little bit different. So I've known her a long time indirectly, not directly very much. And she was always of Indian heritage, and she was only promoting Indian heritage. I didn't know she was black until a number of years ago when she happened to turn black, and now she wants to be known as black. So I don't know, is she Indian or is she black?
She is always
But you know
identified
what?
as a black woman.
I
She went to a
respect
historically
either
black
one.
college.
I respect either one, but she obviously doesn't.
What was meant as an ambush became an epic moment. Faced with adversity, Trump not only held his own, he thrived. While the campaign against Harris was raging on, Trump got himself a job. In the beginning of the campaign, the Harris team tried to humanize their candidate with stories about working at McDonald's. Trump, of course, saw an opportunity.
First order, get 3 medium fries, and we're waiting for you.
Okay, very good. Let's go. When somebody puts down all over the place that she worked at McDonald's, she specifically worked at the French fry, where they make the French fries, and she talked about the heat. It was so tough. She never worked at McDonald's. And they've been very, very nice. And come on, you know, if you look at really what's happening, look at the crowd over there. Look how happy everybody is. They're happy because they want hope. They need hope. And that's what we're doing. That's what we're going to give much more than hope.
What does working the fryer tell you about the people of Pennsylvania?
Make it fact.
Mr. President, you actually have worked at McDonald's now versus...
Now I have worked at McDonald's. I've now worked for 15 minutes more than Kamala.
This was the ultimate troll. Not only did Trump get national headlines for working the fries, but the joke was on Kamala. On top of it, Trump got to eat his favorite food all day. It was basically a win for everyone, except Kamala. Then on September 10th, 2024 in Philadelphia, Trump and Harris faced off for their only presidential debate. From the start, Harris forced a handshake, a deliberate move, and the atmosphere didn't stay cordial for long. They sparred over abortion, immigration, economics, and Trump's record. Oh yeah, and also...
In Springfield, they're eating the dogs. The people that came in, they're eating the cats.
Gotta say though, a lot of great memes came from that one.
They're eating the dogs. The people that came in, they're eating the cats. They're eating the pets.
Afterwards, the mainstream media rushed to declare Harris the winner. But watching it live, one thing was clear. Kamala managed to sorta hold her own, but Trump dominated the night. Now, 5 days after that debate, there was another scare. On September 15th at Trump International Golf Club in Florida, Ryan Ruth waited in the bushes with an AK-style rifle. 12 hours of waiting, 300 yards from Trump. Secret Service spotted the barrel, and this time they managed to scare off the potential assassin. They later caught him and he was arrested for multiple federal charges, including attempted assassination of a major presidential candidate, weapons violation, assaulting a federal officer, and more. In September 2025, he was convicted on all counts. He faces a life sentence, the maximum for the charges he was convicted on. Another assassination attempt, another failure. Trump kept campaigning. And now we move to the October surprise. If you don't know what that means, it's the last-minute bombshell drop just weeks before Election Day. It's the move designed to shake up voters when there's no time left to recover. Sometimes it's a scandal, sometimes it's a leak, sometimes it's an attack from the media, and in 2024, Kamala Harris had one of her own. Sorta. The establishment fired their last shot. On October 22nd, Trump's former chief of staff, John Kelly, ran to the New York Times and said,
What do you think? Do you think he's a fascist?
Well, I'm looking at the definition of fascism. It's a far-right, authoritarian, ultra-nationalist political ideology and movement characterized by a dictatorial leader. But certainly, the former president is in the far-right area, certainly an authoritarian, admires people who are dictators. He has said that. So he certainly falls into the general definition of fascist.
So what would you say when he said to you that Hitler did a lot of good things?
Well, I tell him that. I said, if you first of all, you should never say that. But if you knew what Hitler was all about from the beginning to the end, everything he did was in support of his racist, fascist life, philosophy, so that nothing he did you could argue was good. It was certainly not done for the right reason, but he would occasionally say that.
Within hours, 13 former officials signed a letter backing him up. The media exploded. This, they said, was the October surprise that would finally take Trump down. Kamala tried to seize on the moment. The day after John Kelly's comments hit the press, she delivered remarks at the vice president's residence.
Donald Trump's former chief of staff, John Kelly, a retired 4-star general, confirmed that while
Donald Trump was president. He said he wanted generals like Adolf Hitler had. Donald Trump said that because he does not want a military that is loyal to the United States Constitution. He wants a military that is loyal to him. He wants a military who will be loyal to him personally, one that will obey his orders even when he tells them to break the law or abandon their oath to the Constitution of the United States. In just the past week, Donald Trump has repeatedly called his fellow Americans the enemy from within.
But it flopped completely. Voters had heard it all before. The lines about Trump being dangerous and unfit were recycled from 2016, 2020, and 2022. Nothing new, nothing memorable. By October 2024, the American people weren't looking for more name-calling, they were looking for solutions. And Trump, not Kamala, was offering them. 5 days later, on October 27th, 2024, MAGA went to Madison Square Garden, the beating heart of New York City, deep blue territory, and Trump filled it to the rafters. 20,000 inside, thousands more outside. And this wasn't just Trump. It was a showcase. To name a few, you had the late Hulk Hogan, Dr. Phil, America's Doctor, Elon Musk, the billionaire who turned X into a free speech platform, Tucker Carlson, the man who walked away from Fox and built his own media empire, Vivek Ramaswamy, who had dropped out back in Iowa and thrown his support behind Trump, now proving the gamble paid off, and Melania Trump herself, who introduced her husband to the roaring crowd. In the heart of Manhattan, MAGA had taken over. On that night, it felt like New York might turn red. But what actually happened was very different, because what looked like a long, messy count turned into a blowout. On November 5th and 6th, 2024, the dam broke. 11:18 p.m., North Carolina goes to Trump. 12:58 a.m., Georgia flips red. 1:21 a.m., Decision Desk HQ and News Nation call Pennsylvania. Just before 2 a.m., Fox News calls the presidency for Trump after adding Wisconsin and Pennsylvania. 5:34 a.m., the Associated Press makes it official. By morning, the race was over. The political, physical, and personal attacks had all failed to stop Trump and the MAGA movement from returning to the White House. In the years ahead, they'll try to rewrite history. In fact, they're already doing it.
And it ended up being the closest presidential election in the 21st century.
We didn't dive too deep into Biden's mental decline because this story isn't about what the Democrats did to lose. It's about what Trump did to win. If I missed any big moments, let me know in the comments. Thank you for watching.